Hello, I'm Melanie Kyles and today I'm going to be taking you through a Postcard Embroidery workshop which is for the CANDO project in association with the Hatton Gallery. So we're going to be going through a couple of textile techniques as well as talking a little bit more about the project. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the needle and the card on top of the cardboard to pre-pierce all of the holes that I want the embroidery to go through. The reason that I do this is so that obviously when you're coming up from the back of the card, you can't actually see where the needle's going to come out. So by doing this, it's actually going to save you a lot of time and prevent a lot of mistakes. So it's good to kind of get an idea of where you want your threads to go. Like you can see here, I'm kind of following the lines of the illustration, but if you like, you can add your own designs, you can add some text. You can kind of embellish this illustration in any way that you want. So once you're happy with the holes that you've put in your card, don't worry if you don't feel like you're finished, you can always add more later. But it's good to get started and thread up your needle. So I'm going to do a quick demo of the needle threader. As you can see, I'm putting that springy diamond shape through the eye of the needle. You put your thread through the diamond shaped tip and then you use the threader to pull the thread and the diamond shaped tip through the eye of the needle, and that's going to pull your thread through for you. What I would say is that the needle threader can be quite fragile, the wire on it, so it's always best to kind of grip just at the tip of the diamond shape rather than the end, because what might happen is you might just end up sort of breaking that apart. So here we've got the thread, you can kind of see there, I'm just using a black light on the neon thread there. So if you've got sort of a yellow or a green in your pack, that'll react really well to black light and references some of the technology used in the CANDO project, and also artwork by Susan Aldworth, who I worked with as part of her installation Out of the Blue. And that was in both the Hatton Gallery and in Vane Gallery. So as you can see here, I'm pre-cutting my thread, but the thread that you'll have in your pack will already be cut and it'll be wrapped around a piece of card. So you'll just have to take off whichever colour thread you want to start with. Just show you how to split threads. So get both ends, sort of if you split the end of the thread, hold those both in one hand, use your dominant hand to untwist the thread before pulling it apart. You'll find that there's 6 threads to a strand of embroidery floss, so you can use the whole 6 strands if you're not feeling confident separating it, or if you want bolder lines in your embroidery, or if you want something a little bit more delicate with a little bit more detail, you can sort of split it between 2 and 5. With the finer threads, what I would recommend is actually just doing double knot just to make sure it doesn't come through. A single knot is fine with the thicker thread, so if you've got 6 strands, that's fine. You turn your card around, you can see exactly where your starting point is. However, if you were to do that from the back, you can't see your design. So this is just going to make it a lot easier. The first stitch that I'm going to show you is called running stitch. So you come up at the first hole and point and you go forward 1 pinprick. So you'll be able to see from the back, and then you move forward so you basically keep going in and out of your card and hitting every point that you've already put in that design. So really simple, really quick. It just gives that very sort of like traditional kind of stitching effect. You can actually build this up in layers and it looks really effective. I love to use it in mending, invisible mending. So you can see here, obviously it's not a solid line, it's a broken line. Some of you may prefer that aesthetic. It's also a really good base for other types of stitch, as you'll see later on, and I'll show you sort of freestyling a little bit, kind of wrapping different threads around that stitch as a base point. And when it comes to knotting your thread, you can see here I'm actually kind of pulling the loop with one hand and pulling the end of the thread with another. I find that's the best way of actually getting the knot as close to the card as you can. And obviously you do want to keep your knot as close to the final bit of the embroidery as possible, just to stop it from coming loose. And something that I recommend, it's not essential, but it's just like a little bit of extra security to keep your stitches in place, is to put a little bit of masking tape on the back. This is just going to make sure that your threads don't end up coming through the front. There's not a high chance of that happening anyway, but if you are working with slightly more fragile card, not in these packs, but just like in general, it's good practice to do. So the next technique that I'm going to show you is backstitch. So I'm going to use the pink thread to show you this. So the first stitch that you do is exactly the same as running stitch. So in through the first hole, back down through the second, back up through the third, and instead of going forward, you're going to go back into the second hole. So you're actually joining that into a solid line. So you've gone from the third to the second hole, then you're going to go up in the fourth hole and back down through the third. So if you're thinking about it in numbers, you're going forward 2, back 1, forward 2, back 1. And you continue that for as long as the line that you want to create is. Like, this is such a good technique for if you want to do text. If you want to kind of draw with thread, see this as a solid line, like as a solid kind of drawn line where you can do text and motifs and really kind of create some bold embroidery with that. So yeah, I'm gonna go all the way up here, and then after that I'm gonna show you how to do long stitches and then just a bit of freestyling, but you might want to take a bit longer than I am on this just to kind of make it more decorative. You might decide to keep it minimalist. It's completely up to you. As I mentioned earlier, this workshop is part of the CANDO project for the Hatton Gallery. CANDO stands for Controlling Abnormal Network Dynamics Using Optogenetics, and this is an alternative treatment for epilepsy. Part of the 7-year programme is included an outreach which involves a number of artists, schools and galleries in the form of exhibitions and workshops and events. Optogenetic treatment for epilepsy would involve a small implant to modulate abnormal activity and would prevent seizure development. So the final stitch that I'm going to teach you is straight stitch. So I'm going to have these coming out of the front of the skull. Straight stitch is a really nice fast technique, and it can be used a little bit more loose than sort of doing a back stitch or a running stitch. You can be a little bit more creative with it, and you can see I've kind of sort of followed that front line just a little bit, and then I've created some dots above the head so it'll almost come out like a crown. And what I find with straight stitch, especially if you're doing longer stitches, is rather kind of go backwards and forwards on the back, actually just move across to the next hole, because you don't actually want to have long threads on the back of your work. Also, it's more economical to do it that way, otherwise you can end up using quite a lot of thread that way. And you can see I'm sort of just tying that in the same way, sort of trying to get that knot as close as possible. And for this I'm just going to alternate different threads. It doesn't have to be like straightforward, like just solid lines. You could crisscross these over. I'm going to do a little bit of that here. A great example to have a look at is an artist named Maurizio Anzeri, and he creates the most beautiful spirograph sort of style embroidery on Victorian postcards. More recently has done things for Vogue and for Dazed and Confused magazine. I would highly recommend having a look at his work if you're stuck for inspiration. as you can see with the blue thread, I'm starting to cross them over, and so you start to get that overlapping of threads. The way that you could be creative with this is to think of different materials, such as tartan and different kind of weaves. So actually thinking of how you could even weave in and out of those threads if you really wanted to push the boundaries. For me, I'm just kind of keeping it quite simple, but sort of just adding a tiny bit of interest. So it's just a little bit more than just the straight lines. And as I say, you can involve text, you can involve shapes, whatever you would like to have above the head. There's a lot of space there for you to use creatively in whatever way you see fit. Now, the last embroidery technique that I'm going to do as part of the workshop is I'm going to whip around the back stitch. So as you can see, I'm starting just in the same hole as I started the back stitch there. And rather than keep stitching through the card, I'm actually going to use the eye of the needle, using the blunt end, because obviously the sharp end could quite easily pick up threads that you don't want to pick up. And I'm taking the needle from left to right, just underneath every stitch. And what that kind of gives is you get this really gorgeous twisted effect. You can kind of see it there, especially if you use a contrasting thread, you get that really bold kind of look. So I'm just going to continue that, and then I'm going to extend some of them threads out just a little bit, kind of branch off a little bit at the top and get that bit of balance between the kind of detail at the top of the postcard and how sort of tight it is at the bottom. Finished embroidery also illuminates and is A5, so if you did want to frame it, you should quite easily be able to find a frame for it. Thank you very much for watching, and I really hope you've enjoyed following along. If you'd like to share your work with us, please tag us on Instagram at Hatton_Newcastle, CANDO NCL and Melanie Kyles if you'd like to find out more about the project. You can also check out the CANDO website